Hey, hello and good morning, everybody. If you're a car guy that wants to learn more about cars and performance, you're in the right spot, especially today because we've got a super special guest with us that I'll talk about later. But I'm Kenny Brown, and we'll spend the next hour answering your questions, talking some performance, and just trying to share some of the extensive knowledge I've got from 40 years of professional motorsports and building some really cool cars. And for our lineup today, on the tech side, we have a question about where to start building a performance car. That's kind of a big question. We were going to talk about the 550 car that we're working on right now, but we're going to move that to next week because we have a special guest coming live from Australia in a few minutes, is Marcus Zukanovic, who is a professional racer in the Australian Touring Car Masters Series, which is a hoot. We've got a small clip we'll show you, but basically it looks like almost like a Trans Am vintage race. But there's also, American Mustangs, Camaros mixed in with the Australian cars. It's pretty cool, and they race like crazy. But he'll be here to talk to us a little bit. And going down my list, questions. Don't forget to send in your questions if you have any. I'll try to answer them live. And then also, when Marcus is on, you can send questions into him because you're going to enjoy him. He's a pretty interesting guy. And for those that know us real well, at first glance, there's a great similarity to Paul. And we're, as you know, we're simulcasting on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And you can sign up for, I got to get this right. Okay, you can sign up by clicking the subscribe button and the bell. I got that if you want notifications. And then on Facebook, if you're not a member of the Speed Therapy Society, please join. It's a great group of like-minded car people. And all the questions I answer come from the Speed Therapy Society. So, there's a lot of good reasons to join. It's a great group. I think we're over 500 members now. So it's pretty cool. You see a lot of pictures and a lot of good conversation. This month's artwork, well, actually, we talked about that last week. It's at the 66 Le Mans, the formation finish. But to augment that, I have some posters back here that Marcus sent me from Action Racing, along with his T-shirt. But we'll get to Marcus in just a few minutes. Okay, why don't we start with some of the questions that we've gotten in. Brandon wants to know, that's a good question. Even though you're more of a twisty and turns racing guru, what with the S550, I am wanting to do both drag and compete in some track days. Is there any good medium between the two? Well, I'm going to expand that, and it should be between the three because I'm sure this is a street car, and street driving is part of it. And yeah, actually, there can be. The interesting thing about the 550s is that the further we get into the Mustang history, the better the cars get. When we first started with Fox Mustangs in the Celine R endurance program in '86 and '87, and we started, modifying Mustangs after that, we had to do a lot to the Fox Mustang to really make them quick. When the SN95s came out, they were a little bit better, but they were sort of like just an advanced Fox. And but then when the 99 04 Cobras came out, that was another leap. They kept getting better, and kept doing things to those. When the S197 cars came out, it's like Ford made this huge leap with 3-link in the back of the panel bar and parallel front control arms, which made it really easy to improve the suspension and dynamics. And we didn't even have to put as much chassis stuff on it because it got better. Well, the 550 cars got even better yet. They're pretty rigid right from the factory, and they've done some really good and interesting things to make that car pretty good. So, we don't have to do as much to the 550 cars as we used to make them really quick. But to get back to your question, a couple of things it all depends on your budget and what you're really looking for. But the thing one thing you need to do is get the IRS carrier kind of locked down. I think we've got a kit on our website that takes the rubber bushings and the carrier and kind of puts an aluminum cup on it so it doesn't move around. That's one thing. The other thing is just get a good set of springs and shocks. And you want to choose your springs and shocks carefully because you want to do street, drag, and track. So you need to have you can't get too aggressive on spring rate if it's going to be on the street, but you need more spring rate than comes from factory. So if you want more information about that, you can certainly just set up one of the 15-minute consults with me. I'll be happy to talk to you on that further. Okay, Andrew, this is another good question. Engine mount choice with the AGS 3.0 front kit, solid or rubber? So, AGS 3.0 is the SN95 live axle. That's 94 to 04. AGS 3.5 is the IRS cars, and it's like we always just use the factory motor mounts in the street cars. We found them to be pretty good. I would shy away from solid motor mounts, and here's why. Cars, engines, they vibrate. There's a lot of like vibrations running all through the motors all the time. When you have some sort of cushioning material in the motor mount, it kind of absorbs some of those small vibrations and keeps from bad things happening. When in 2003, I think, in our World Challenge GT Mustang, we solid mounted the engine to normal engine mounts, and we cracked 2 blocks. The modular motors just do not have a strong enough block to do a solid mounts on the side like where the regular motor mounts are. If you did want to do solid motor mounts, then what you need to do is get engine plates, and that's a pretty good task. What an engine plate is, it's a big plate, and it bolts straight to the front of the engine, one to the front of the engine, one to the back of the engine, and because it's that way, it's held in place with a whole bunch of bolts front and rear, and then that solid mounts to the chassis. So, but as far as the solid mounts on a mod motor, aluminum mod motor, you can try it. I've just had really bad luck with it. That's why we just went back to the regular motor mounts and found them to be just fine, because you can't use that engine as a stress member anyway. Okay, here's a good one. What's the best way to evacuate all the air out of a tire before changing to nitrogen? Well, I got a trick for that, a tip and a trick. What I do is, obviously, you let all the air out. You put the little valve back in, and then I'll fill them up about halfway with nitrogen. Then I'll take the little valve out, let that all go out, then put the valve back in and fill it up with nitrogen. So I fill it up with nitrogen to kind of dilute the air that's in there and push some of the air that's left out, so there's more nitrogen than air left in there. So it's not really an evacuation. It's just kind of like do a pre-fill and then a fill, so you get more nitrogen than air. But even getting a little bit of air in there, really, unless it's super humid air, really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Okay, going down my carry list, as you know. Here we go. Yes, you had to write it down. Of course, I forgot it. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Live Cars and Coffee, where I spend about an hour or so sharing my extensive experience in professional motorsports and building great cars. And today we have a super special guest, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Let's see. I can tie this into another question back here. I'm going to move back to one of the topics. And this is a question that came through the Speed Therapy Society, but I don't know who sent it in, but the question was where to start in building a street performance car. Boy, that's a big question. It depends on what kind of car. It depends on what you want to do, but the best tip I can give you is, like, if anybody's been in any of my workshops or tech sessions, the place to start to build a performance car is the end. And that's why I always say start with the end in mind. Before you start building your car, plan where you want to be at the end and kind of work backwards from there. But I have 5 secrets to the great cars I build, and that's chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. Building a performance platform to me is the most important thing. You know, I tell people, forget about the power until you get a platform underneath the car that'll support the extra power. So, I mean, that's the kind of the best advice I can give you as far as individual pieces, parts. You know, if you've got something in mind, again, sign up for a 15-minute consult, and I'll be happy to talk through and work at maybe kind of a mini build plan for you. But, you know, like I say, you start with the end in mind, and then start building your performance platform. And if you do that, then whatever power you add to it later on is going to work just fine. Oh, yeah. And yeah, we'll carry just, I just said that. You weren't listening. I said if he called in, I could help him create a build plan. Boy, sometimes these directors just don't pay attention. So, I mean, that's kind of like the best advice I could give you. Yeah, it's just, if you want to build a plan, call in, set up a 15-minute consult, and we'll go from there. Okay, I don't want to take too much time because of our special guest. If you answer the questions, going down my list, where to start, we move 550 to next week. So I think we're going to move right into our special guest today. Our special guest is Marcus Zukanovic, and he races in the Australian Touring Car Masters. It's a wild series. Right now, he's racing a Falcon. That is a Australian Falcon. I think in the 60s or something like that. He'll tell us. But we got connected as him and his father are building a new Fox Mustang race car for the series. And we got connected because we're supplying some suspension pieces for it, a little bit of technical support. And we just got really connected. And, you know, we're great people. You know, it's kind of like great contacts. And we enjoy each other. And I think you'll enjoy Marcus too. So before we're going to try our technology thing again. Before we introduce Marcus, we just have a really short clip of the start of the Adelaide race down in Australia. No volume.
It's not even going. Hold on. Is it going?
Yeah. I just can't hear it. This worked perfectly last night.
I know what I did.
What?
I'm going to stop sharing it and just keep talking.
Okay. I guess she's going to stop sharing. I'm supposed to keep talking. She's going to back up. She figured out which button she didn't push or which button she pushed that she shouldn't have. And I'm just killing time. Killing time. Talking, killing time. Killing time. Oh, here we go.
Well, the Gulf Western Oils Touring Car Masters about to start their 100th round here on the streets of Adelaide. Started back in 2007. And Ryan Hansford will start out a pole position alongside Adam Garwood with John Bowe, Ryle Harris and Adam Bressington amongst the top 5. Marcus Zukanovic also inside the top 10. Andrew Fisher will start from 13th place. Leighton Barker and Richard Crowell. The big story here is the XD Falcon of Stephen Johnson starting from the tail of the field.
Yeah, and peeling off into pit lane is the also brand new VB Commodore. They've been battling with fuel pressure issues in that car. It's been leaning out, so Jared McLeod bailing out of this one to make sure that car's okay.
A live test session for him today as we get underway for the first points pain race of the year, and they fan out to 3 and 4 wide into the centre chicane. Bell makes contact into Garwood, hits the gravel trap. Hansford's also involved. 3 cars in the gravel trap, and the top 3 contenders, OUT.
He got a great start and went down the inside and just did not get the car slowed down enough, and Adam Garwood had nowhere to go and found a Tirana crunching into his rear quarter. Will go safety car straight away. Adam Bressington from 5th on the grid finds himself in front row.
Okay, that gives you just kind of a little bit of taste. I said they're it looks like a vintage Trans Am race, and they do race hard, as you just saw. So with that, we're going to bring in from the other side of the world, Marcus Zukanovic. Good morning. I guess it is morning down there. Why don't you tell us where you are in Australia and what time of the day it is?
Good morning, Ken, Kari, and all the viewers at home. How are you? It's let me check. I think it's 1:15 a.m. in the morning here in Melbourne, Australia. So a little late, but thankfully it's a Saturday, Saturday transitioning into Sunday morning. So
Actually,
yeah.
I'm saying good morning to our guys, and I'm saying good morning to you at the same time.
Yeah, just a little earlier for me. That's all.
So, listen, why don't you, now that you told us where you are and what time it is, why don't you give everybody a little taste of how you got started in racing and where you kind of ended up today?
Yeah, no problem. So, wow. The motorsport interest actually stems back to Dad. Obviously, Dad's been involved in a bit of motorsport, but he was a blown alcohol boat racer back in the day. And it got to a point where I got old enough where he thought, you know what, he'd had enough of racing boats, etc., and business and all that sort of stuff. So he bought us a couple of go-karts, and that's how we got into motorsport, was obviously go-kart racing. So I did it for a year or two when I was quite young, about 11 years old. And then from there, took a break with school and sports and, just trying to find myself as a young fella. And it wasn't until about 16 and, I got my learner's permit to drive on the roads and then decided that I wanted to go racing again. So with that in mind, Dad just sort of said to me, you know what, before I go and outlay all this money in motorsport, we'll see if you obviously, A, have the interest, and B, have the talent to try and, take it further. So he dragged the old go-kart we had laying around out, got one of my buddies that he knew that is very handy with go-karts, and got us set up. And basically, Dad said to me, hey, let's be realistic about this. If you've got any talent and you can drive, let's see if we can win a race in the first 3 months. Well, I think it took me, the first month to win my first race, and that was when Dad said, all right, well, we've got something to work with here. So we went out, we bought a couple of new shiny karts and some engines, and for the next 4 years, travelled up and down the eastern seaboard here in Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, racing in pretty much every race we could get entered into. So 4 years of that, turned 20 years old, and that was when Dad decided that, probably should look at the next step. And so the next step for us was a one mate category here in this country. We called it Commodore Cup Series. Now, a Commodore is in fact a General Motors car, so GM, but Australian GM. So it's a Holden Commodore, and they ran a little 4.2 litre V8 in them with a 4-speed transmission, all that sort of stuff, and all one make. So they're all the same cars. So we cut our teeth at that for a while, up until about, I think it was 2006, when we also cross-entered into a pickup series here, which I guess you could say is kind of like your truck series, a NASCAR over there. And I managed to win both Australian titles in both of those categories. So, which was a huge achievement. It had only ever been done once here in this country by one other fella. And with that, we then looked at the next phase. And so my career in, I guess, equivalent to say nationwide series over there, or Infinity, I think it's called now. I was racing in the Super 2 series here. So effectively an Australian V8 supercar. We were running at a privateer level. So, Dad and I and a few good mates worked on the car, and we ran it as best as we could. But very hard to try and compete against factory operations and things like that. But, we give it a really good go, and, did that for a few years until, 2008 was probably my breakout year, where I actually signed a contract with the factory Holden Racing team over here for V8 Supercars as a co-driver. So was signed up to run in 09. Well, in the first part of 09, I was involved in a very heavy testing crash, which nearly took my life. Thankfully, the Hans device saved my life. So losing my contract with the factory GM team, we then sort of found this series now, Australian, Touring Car Masters Series, and it's become, I think, the home for us. The full-time possibility of a career is kind of past it, but now we're doing it for a lot of fun now, and these cars are just fantastic. So that's how we ended up where we are now in the series, and a little bit over my history as we've gone through.
Well, what's the best race car you think you've ever driven?
So it'd have to be. Sorry, Siri wants to talk to me. Hang on. So the best race car probably I've driven is a V8 supercar, obviously, but I was lucky enough to drive a factory Ford Falcon, so an ex-Tickford racing car that was, here in this country. They're the feature Ford team, and I was lucky enough to have one of their cars to compete in the 2015 series. So that was probably the best car, just for the way the dynamics and stuff they had through their whole, suspension platform, the way they got things to work was pretty cool, and the car was pretty quick. So that is probably my all-time favorite. So it's a Ford Falcon V8 supercar FG model, which is a 2012 they first come out, and then they sort of superseded in 2015, 16, I think.
Yeah, I believe you're racing a Falcon now. Can you tell everybody about it? Because Falcon here is a whole different meaning than Falcon in Australia.
Okay, so the model of car Falcon. So when you say Ford Falcon in this country, it's kind of like it's the family sedan. It's the Australian icon. So just like in the States, you've got Ford versus Chevy, and throw in Ford versus Dodge or whatever it is, all that stuff. Well, the Ford Falcon is effectively the model of car that you would buy to run the kids around and all that sort of stuff. And it's been around for a very long time, and so the model of car in particular is a 1979 Ford XD Falcon. It runs a 351 Australian Cleveland style V8 in it, but obviously all motorsport stuff, motorsport block, and CHI Heads, a company here in this country that specialises in like a 3V style of head. It's making about 750 horsepower, naturally aspirated with a single carburetor, 4-speed Andrews transmission, 9-inch rear end. It's pretty cool sort of a car. Runs Brembo chrome brakes, two-way adjustable Penske shocks all the way through it, and a full Motec system for data logging and data acquisition, all that sort of stuff. So great car, fantastic car. So that's why to land in this category, we love it. It's fantastic cars.
Ironically, my very first car when I was a youngster was a 64 Ford Falcon. Right.
Okay. So being over there, Ford Falcon, is it slightly different? I'm imagining.
Yeah, it's Ford Falcon was a little compact car.
Okay.
Came with I think I had 144 cubic inch straight line 6 was the motor.
Neck snapping performance.
Yeah, with a 3-speed.
Okay, very cool. Very cool.
I bent the column shifter so much that I had to put a floor shift in it, because the column shifter just looked like a pretzel of all the times I bent it shifting at first and second. So anyway, that's a very long time ago.
That's for a whole other chat.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell people a little about the Carrie's holding a sign up. Okay. Tell us a little about the Fox Mustang that you're building now, because to me that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, so Fox body, this isn't the first time a Fox has sort of been introduced into Australia. So back in, I think it was the late 80s and early 90s in the Australian touring car series, an Australian icon, Dick Johnson, introduced a Fox body Mustang. And so because of that introduction back then, it sort of allowed our rules to adopt that model of car. Anyway, so after building, first of all, the XD Falcon, we obviously, Dad and I and all the guys, we learned a massive amount about the car and the category and how they like to, how the cars like to be. And so Dad just come up with the idea. He thought, this is, I wonder if the category will allow a Fox body, just the whole concept of the early 302 cubic inch V8 in it, 4-speed, weighing around 2,900 pounds would be quite a good race car. And so we approached the category and said, look, hey, you've opened the window for the age of the category to maximum 1980. Does that allow us to introduce a 79 1980 Fox Body Mustang? And they jumped at the opportunity because it's just such a cool car. And obviously the Mustang is such an iconic brand throughout the world that they thought, why not? How cool would it be to have a 79 80 model Fox racing against a 69, 70, 71 Boss Mustang? So that's how it come about. And then Dad made some phone calls and we managed to find a body shell here in Melbourne that someone had started 20 years ago for a project as a race car, but just never got around to finishing it. So we purchased the body. It was just a bare body shell, and it arrived at the workshop. And then Dad spent many a late night on Google looking to find out who would be a fitting person to jump in and give us a hand to build this Fox body and enter Kenny Brown Performance.
Yeah, we actually shipped a great big pallet of stuff over to Australia. We kind of collected it all up, our front suspension, and we got some special, some other special parts to go with it. And we had this great big old, we also got a axle housing from Strange. We had this great big pallet. Yeah, larger than a regular pallet. And
yeah. It was a big package, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, the freight company picked it up. I think it was there in like 3 or 4 days. It got there like pretty quick.
We've got a fantastic guy over here, helps us obviously with a lot of motorsport stuff, and the home of Ford really is the United States. We just turn straight to the United States for all our stuff, and obviously yourself and a few other suppliers around the place. We've got this Ford, freight broker we give them a call. We're like, can you go and get this picked up? And sure enough, with the right amount of money, it turns up on your doorstep, 3 or 4 days later. So, which is good. I mean, if you guys jump on my personal Facebook page, you can see some of the photos through the progress of the car, etc. So all Kenny's go fast bits went under the car, and now it's just about on its wheels where we can start doing the body work and then start doing the roll cage and seat position, etc.
Can you tell us what your Facebook page is, and maybe Brad, if you're out there, you can put it up or post it for people?
Yeah, sure. So it's just my name pretty much. So the page is obviously my personal race page. So it's just Marcus, as you can see on the vision there, and then my surname Zukanovic. So Zukanovic. Just jump on, give it a like, and go through. There's some cool stuff in there. When I can get a chance, and I'm going to upload some vision of the XD from last year at Bathurst, which is obviously our great race that we call it, the Bathurst 1000, like your Daytona 500. I've got some in-car vision, and my car was one of the fastest cars, I think, going down the main straightaway there last year, breaking the 300-kilometre-an-hour bracket, which I think is roughly around 179, 180 mile an hour. So bit of an achievement. Like it's pretty special to go down Conrod Straight at Bathurst doing 300 plus Ks an hour. It's pretty awesome. So
yeah, I mean, Bathurst is really cool. I mean, I've watched it a number of times. That's actually one of the races my late son Paul really wanted to race, was in Bathurst, but obviously never got the chance. But why don't you give us a little more scope on the series? How many races are there? Where do you race?
Yeah, sure. So the Touring Car Masters series out here, quickly, I'll just give you an idea where it stemmed from. So here in this country, they run a category called Group NC. Now, Group NC is basically a category that's 1964, I think, to 73. Anyway, so the cars are actually periodic, raced as per period. So, if it's got drum brakes in the rear, it takes drum brakes still, etc. Anyway, the cars are just so cool. Everyone loves a retro muscle car, from that era. Like, it's such a great era. And so somebody, one of the category owner at that stage, Tony Hunter, he came up with the idea saying, why don't we take that concept and actually make them raceable and safe? And so that's how Touring Car Masters was born. So it started off 1964 to, I think, 1973, and then the years started to open up over time. And so some of the cars that are in the series now, like I'm racing against some very fast Ford Mustangs, some Chevy Camaros, some obviously Australian-built Ford, so the Ford Falcon. Also racing against some Holdens, obviously an Australian GM, which, there's a little Tirana in there, which I guess is like the platform is like a Fox body. It's quite small, shorter wheelbase, quite narrow. Runs a 5-litre Chevy V8 to 302 cubic inch as well. So it's a fantastic category. The cars they run on a Hoosier tyre, so a slick tyre, an R7 compound, and they're just really cool. 15-inch wheels, which that keeps it, I guess, era correct and minimises, stops you putting, big technological brakes under it, 6-speed, 6-pot calipers and things like that. But fantastic category.
Okay, so somebody asked a question if they use SLA, and I think no, they have to use, if I'm not mistaken, period correct. That's why they have my front suspension, the strut front suspension for the Fox and SN95, along with our strange custom valve strange coilovers. Actually had even different valving put in for Marcus, because they're running a lot higher spring rate. They're in the 850 range. Now, if you guys recall, I want to talk about spring rates, from street to intermediate to perform to advanced track. And all of our advanced drivers with sticky tires run about a 650 for spring, intermediate drivers 500, street performance 400, and the best you can get off the shelf for stock shocks is like maybe 200. But anyway, I also said that we ran 850 to 1,000 on Paul's car for the Pirelli slicks in the World Challenge, and with motorsport shocks. And so here's kind of like the same thing. You're running a slick with 850 front spring.
Yeah, we definitely spring them up a little bit. I mean, it's always, give it the base platform quite firm to begin with. And then obviously once we get it on track, we'll start tuning. A lot of the tracks here, so part of the series, we do a lot of street racing. And as you saw in that vision, the Adelaide 500, which I'm not sure if a lot of you guys follow any motorsport out here, the South Australian government, because Adelaide's in the state of South Australia, has just canned that event. It's devastating. We've lost that race that you just saw vision of for good. They call it the pandemic of this COVID stuff was partially the reason for it, but they're also saying it's not viable. Like, it's just crazy. But that particular track you saw there, Adelaide, that's brutal. Like, lots of curbs. You are hammering curbs and trying to keep the thing out of the fence. It just requires stiffer springs, stiffer shocks, almost with a blow-off style internal inside the shock to allow for you to hit the curb as hard as we do and get them to land and take the landing, So, yeah.
Yeah, I've actually watched some of the supercar races at Adelaide, and there's no such thing as a curb. That's just part of the track as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, well, if the curb's there, you just shorten the track up. It's faster around, so that's the idea of it.
What do you think it takes to make a good race car driver?
Oh, that's a good question. So, obviously, the biggest one is you got to have a passion for the sport. Like, if you don't have a passion for it, it's very hard to invest in something if you don't have the passion. So, with the passion, then obviously, a lot of dedication. So you've got a mental approach, your physical fitness, pretty much, to be a good race car driver, really have to apply yourself. I think, like some guys are born with, an amazing talent. Other guys maybe not so much. I probably find that I probably wasn't born with massive amounts of talent, but I've worked hard through my career to, through testing and tyre development, and just understanding the cars. Like, I guess an edge is really understand your car. That's probably one of the biggest things, So I'm a body man by trade. Like, I finished high school, went to tech school afterwards, and got my diploma in bodywork. So working on cars at a young age, that give me the added edge I believe, when it come time to start racing cars. Good feel, understand mechanically how it works, how it moves, and what it takes to fix it should you crash it. So that's a big part of it. Just really understand your car is probably the first bit. Obviously, if you've got a passion, you're going to learn it and then start to apply it.
Well, we all know that, at least from what I know, that you've applied it pretty well because you're a pretty darn good little racer. Terry,
Thank you.
you got any questions coming in?
We have a couple.
Yeah, set up a little table here.
Looks like you were
Yeah, no
looking at-
problem.
Okay, so one of them that we have is from Rod Tink. He wants to know what will be the weight difference between the XD and the Mustang. Does that make sense?
That was a little dull. Say that again.
Say that?
The weight difference between
It says an XD and a Mustang.
XD and a Mustang.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to talk kilos. So the XD weighs currently 1,500 kilos. I think the category is going to probably mandate the Fox body to around, I would say, 1,350 kilos. So if I get a calculator, I can determine that for the American viewers. Was that from Rod King? RT, what are you doing up at this hour of the night? Rod's a good buddy of my dad's, been a long-time family friend. So the XD in American torque weighs 3,300 pounds, and 2.2,900 pounds for the Fox body.
So that should be a pretty quick little car because what you tell me you're thinking 600 horsepower or so?
Yeah, Dad's pretty confident with the engine guys that they should be able to get 600, 620 maybe horsepower at a little 302.
I can tell you from my perspective, that much horsepower, that light a car with 15-inch wheels and 245 tire in the front, 275 tire in the back. That's got to be exciting, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, when Dad came up with the idea to approach a category so that they allow it, all those things you just said there were the factor to go, we should look at this seriously because it should be a very fast car. Not that my XD is not, but we're still in the development phases. There was not a lot of development done with that style of car to turn into a race car, back in the day. So, with obviously, the Fox body being so popular throughout the United States and guys like yourself building all this cool stuff for them, it was a no-brainer to sort of really seriously look at the car and go, let's turn it a touring car masters car.
I know you're running a big, as big as you can get Brembo in a 15-inch wheel. Do you have to run the drum brakes on the back, or can you upgrade to discs?
No, so on the touring car masters car, we're full NASCAR pads and rotors all the way around. So they're 305 millimeter rotors on the front, which is the biggest we can get under, and in the rear is the same size rotor. Just the pads are not as thick. I think we run it's a 28 millimeter pad in the front, a PFC 11 compound, and in the rear it's just slightly thinner. So I think it's about 25 mil thick in the rear, but same sort of concept. Sorry.
But for 15-inch wheels, that makes a lot of sense because the NASCAR runs on really small wheels, and they're a really heavy car. So if you got NASCAR brakes in a car that's a whole bunch lighter than a NASCAR, they should work pretty darn well.
Yeah, they do. They work pretty good. Except I find the heavier cars, so like the XD being a bit heavier, tends to work the brake a lot harder. So on a short track, the bigger cars, so the heavier weighing cars, tend to cook the brakes faster. So at a little place we would race at Winton, for example, it hurts the brakes more than the Fox body would.
Yeah, that's always good because if it's a really hot day, then you're going to have brakes at the end of the race. Somebody might be running out. Yeah.
And I can attest for brakes, you do need them. As much as people say you just need the loud pedal to go, you do need brakes. I can guarantee you that. I've got scars on my right leg to tell me so.
Yeah, you need a brake pedal to keep from running into the guy in front of you.
Yeah,
when you want to pass him.
Yeah, that or concrete walls if the brake fails. That was my crash in 2009. It was brake failure.
That's what we talk about in some of my workshops. Is like there's a couple different ways to stop a car, and concrete walls, trees are the least desirable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I vote least desirable for the concrete wall, I can tell you.
Okay. Well, have you got any more questions, Carrie?
Yeah, we have one more, but I think this is an insider question. So just be aware. So the question comes from Brad Grissom, who I think is probably Robbie Harrod. So what is a food you would not recommend eating right before a race? And are you speaking with personal experience on this?
What is a food that I wouldn't eat right before a race? Well, probably wouldn't eat onions for two reasons, right? You're going to put the head sock on and then the race helmet on, and it's a full face. Well, once you're strapped into the race car, obviously you got onion breath. That's the first problem. And then second of all, it might give you gas. So when you got gas in the race car and you're strapped in with a full fireproof suit, it comes straight up and whips right through the head sock and into the nose. So I would avoid onions before the start of a race.
Correct answer.
That does sound like personal experience.
Yeah. Can confirm possibly maybe once that's happened.
Brian has a question. Can you use Cleveland 3V heads on the 302 in your series?
At this stage, I think the category is about to open it up to a possibly a different head, because this car's obviously still in the evaluation stages with the category in the build. I believe they're going to allow the CHI possibly and a couple other makes, maybe a C3 or something. I'm not sure, but I believe they are opening it up to a different head.
Okay. And I think we just have one more, and I don't know if Ken, you were going to ask this one. But it is, let's see. So this is another one, I think, spurring.
Another inside question.
Yes, I think so. Would you ever polish Robbie Harrod's bald head with car wax? We know that Jay Leno did that recently, and Robbie seemed to like it.
Okay, just
of course. Give Robbie the old spit shine every time.
Yeah, Robbie's we've been have friends for God, I don't know how many years, and he's from Australia. He's just pretty much right down the road from Marcus, and they know him real well. Robbie's actually doing a whole Ford Mustang program in Australia right now, which is pretty cool.
Rob's a guru out here in these parts and has been for a very long time, and he's probably Mr. Ford under Henry Ford himself, especially here anyway in Australia. So no, Robbie's a legend of a man. And if you're out there, Robbie, what are you doing up at this late hour of the night? Are you on the gas too, having a couple of quiet beverages, or what's going on, mate? Yeah, I'll have to catch up when you're back in Melbourne next.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's kind of strange. Every big event we go to, every trade show we go to, we always run into Robbie. I mean, it's just like, boom, there he is. It's just like, so he's a cool guy, really good guy. Always got a smile.
He does, definitely. Yeah, no, he's a ripping fella. I think, like I said earlier, the fact that anything motorsport, anything performance has generally come from the United States. So whenever there's a cool show, be it, PRI or SEMA, I know Robbie's always over there. We try and get over as much as we can just because there's just so much cool stuff. It really is. And it's just a great experience to get over there and see it all. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Everything loosens up again. Probably next year when they have PRI, I mean, we'll have to get together and have some dinner.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll come and hang out at the booth. And if any of you guys are out and about and around, definitely, if I'm there, come and say good day, reach out. So, for sure.
Okay, we have any more questions, Carrie?
Oh, yeah, we have some for you. So,
okay, a couple questions for me. So, go ahead.
Do you want to ask them now, or do you want to hang out with us a little bit longer? Or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I'm cool. I've got nowhere to be other than sleep, bed. So, no, I'm happy to hang out. If anyone wants to shoot another question, no problem. But, yeah, cool.
This one is for Kenny. By the way, Don Atcher says cool posters. He really likes your posters.
I got away again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I think also he's thanking you he's really enjoying what your little talk. Okay, Donna Atcher also has a question for you, Kenny. He says recommended spring rates for a 1980 Mustang. He has a Maximum Motorsports suspension with torque arm, street and autocross use. It's an 80 Mustang.
80 Mustang. I think we'd have to set up a 15-minute consult because I need to know more. I'm not a torque arm guy, so I'd have to find out more about shocks and other things and what you're running now, and if you're running coilovers or if you're still running the factory coil-on control arm. So I mean, you can just get a hold of Carrie or sign up for 15 minutes, and we can kind of talk through, and I can come up with some ideas because I'd like to have I got a whole huge chart of spring rates, all kinds of spring rates for all kinds of cars, which I always have to refer to. So what else?
We also have a question from it's a very long one.
Okay, long question.
This is going to be Giovanni. I think this is probably going to be a see, that's how long it is. Did you see it up there?
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to read it?
93 code modified for the street. Choose not to run coilover setup because I thought it might be too aggressive. Instead of iBox Sport line springs, yellow conies, EMR arms, lower. Putting a beefy sway bar on.
You read it out loud.
Beefy sway bar, front sway bar. Is there anything else you recommend for handling support? Well, we probably have to talk because the sport line springs, if I recall, they're equivalent. I always look at the equivalent on coil on strut versus coil on control arm, and if they're on the control arm, that probably equivalent of only maybe a 190 or a 200-pound spring on a coilover. And like I told you guys before, our touring package is 350 and street performance is 400. So I mean, spring upgrade would be a good start, and then the saying that the coilovers are too aggressive. I think that's a misunderstanding because we build custom coilovers for Fox and SN95, and it's my valving, and whether it makes it aggressive or not boils down to what kind of spring rate we're running and what kind of shock valving. And we just are sending out a full coilover set up front and rear for an IRS car that's a street car. So we're going to pull the spring rates way back to I think 375. 400 because it's an IRS car, but yeah, I mean, you can get an IRS, you can get a coilover setup that's we can do a custom setup and make it kind of palatable for whatever you're doing. So that's another good one for a 15-minute consult. Okay.
Okay. There's another one. This one is for you, Marcus, and I have a feeling somebody must have talked to Robbie. So you're in trouble again. The question is, if you were to get, I think it was sponsorship, I missed the question. In order to get sponsorship, would you wear a clown nose and a rocker 70s hairstyle for every interview you did? I don't know if I'm getting that correct.
No, I think I got a copy of that question right here.
Do you have it? Yeah.
It says, let's say a sponsor comes along and says, we're going to fully fund you your entire rest of your racing career on the condition you wear a clown nose and 80s rocker wig on every interview as long as you're driving. Would you accept the offer? That's easy. That's not a yes. That's a hell yes.
Put the name Bozo. Bozo the clown. Done. Let's go racing.
I mean, money is one of the hardest things to find in racing. And you definitely wear a clown nose for a good sponsorship deal.
Jeez, yeah, definitely, 100%.
I think that was all the questions that we had. Colby Ward has one more for you, Kenny. What is the maximum spring rate that the Coney Yellows can handle? No pun intended.
The Coney Yellows. I'm thinking about that. I would guess. Now, I presume you're putting a coilover on the Coney Yellows. I think I'd keep it maybe in the 200, 300 range, because the Coney Yellows is a sport shock, and it's still, it's designed for the street. And I would guess, Coney's a good shock absorber. They're typically designed for spring rates that would be on shock around 200 and 225. So I think, that's a hard question because I haven't really seen a shock dyno for Coney Yellows. So I would just guess, because it's a street shock, in the 300 range.
And so this is interesting from Dan Atcher. He said he's following Marcus's Fox Body build. So is there a way we can follow that? Is that on your Facebook page?
Yeah, he said that's on his Facebook page.
I'm not paying attention.
Just jump online if you're keen to have a look, and jump on my Facebook page and give it a like. Yeah, I got to get some more content up, but through this COVID stuff, I've been pretty busy in the family business driving a tow truck, so that's kind of taken a lot of my attention right now. But I'll try and get some more photos up shortly, because we've done a little bit more work since. We've got fiberglass doors installed, and all the front end wheels and everything's in. So all Kenny's products are all under the car. But no, definitely jump on Facebook page and follow. I'll give some updates shortly.
Okay, if we out of questions?
Yeah, no more questions for today.
Well, this is kind of cool. We're actually going to end up on time for a change, which is good. So, and let me talk about, like, next week, I think we're going to talk about 550 cars. We got a 550 car we're doing some development work with. And we also have another interesting car in the shop that has some history with me. We'll maybe talk about a little bit about that too. And of course, send in your questions, things you want me to talk about. Remember that the content of what I talk about come from your questions in the Speed Therapy Society, because I talk about what you want to know about. That thing popped up again. Giovanni popped up.
There.
Oh, there. So with that, I think let's give everybody a warm round of thumbs up.
No, Robbie. Marcus.
Yeah, a warm round of thumbs up for Marcus.
Okay.
For joining us today and sharing some of his adventures in motorsport and about his new car, which I'm pretty excited about. I can't wait to see it on track. So with that, get some thumbs up going and send us some love, and we'll probably have Marcus back on again sometime as the
definitely. I'd like to be back for sure.
We'll find out more what's going on with the car. So with that, we will see you all next week. Same time, same station. Actually, different time next week.
Oh,
why is it different time next week? Because tomorrow morning is fall back. We go back on daylight standard time at 1 a.m. or 12 a.m., whatever. So next week, it'll be still 10 o'clock, but it'll be actually almost feel like 11 o'clock. Yeah, everybody gets to sleep an extra hour tomorrow. So with that, we thank everybody for joining us today, and thank Marcus again, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Talk to you soon.